New York college students Bill and Stan are peacefully driving through the rural areas of Alabama. As they enter Beecham County, they stop briefly at a convenience store called Sacco Suds to buy food and snacks for the trip. At that moment, with his hands full of groceries, Bill accidentally slips a can of tuna into his pocket. He pays for everything else as usual and drives away, completely forgetting about the tuna.
Jesus. Look, I forgot to pay for this.
Just as Stan jokes that Alabama is so strict, it would even give a 10-year-old the death penalty, a police car starts following them from behind. Although the officer does not turn on the siren yet, both boys become nervous. A few moments later, the flashing lights come on, and they pull over. To their surprise, the officer points a gun at them, orders both of them out of the car, and treats them like dangerous criminals. The boys find it strange that they have been brought in for what they believe is stealing a can of tuna.
Ridiculous, all this over a can of tuna.
In reality, the police are investigating a murder. Completely unaware of that, they casually answer Sheriff Farley's questions. Thinking it is all about the forgotten tuna, Bill admits that what happened was an accident and insists Stan had nothing to do with it. The sheriff writes down every word, leaving Bill with the impression that Alabama takes even small crimes extremely seriously. When it is Stan's turn, he admits that he only found out about it after they were already back in the car. The sheriff asks why he never reported it to the police. Stan casually replies that Bill is his friend, so he simply let it go. Hearing that, the sheriff immediately considers him an accomplice and accessory, even warning that they might not make it to the electric chair before the verdict. Stan is left completely confused, wondering whether stealing a can of tuna could really carry the death penalty. The next day, during another round of questioning, Bill finally explains the entire story about the tuna can. The sheriff pauses for a moment and asks if all of this started because of tuna fish. Then, in the same conversation, he suddenly asks when they shot the store clerk. Only then does Bill realize that someone was murdered at the convenience store. But by then, it is already too late. Following procedure, the police allow both boys to make a phone call. Stan cannot reach his relatives because they live in a remote mountain village in Chile. Bill instead calls his mother in New York, who can hardly believe what she is hearing. Bill desperately explains that they only forgot to pay for a can of tuna and insists the local police are deliberately framing them for murder. As he says this, everyone inside the police station turns to look at him. Hiring a lawyer would cost between $5,000 and $10,000, far more than Bill's family can afford. Fortunately, it so happens that one of his relatives is a lawyer, his cousin Vinny.
We got an attorney in the family.
Great, who?
My cousin Vinny.
Vinny arrives in Alabama with his fiancée, Mona Lisa Vito. Dressed in stylish leather jackets, the New York couple immediately catches the attention of the locals. A friendly man walks over and tells Vinny that the car is wobbling because mud has gotten inside the tires. Mona Lisa, who knows cars inside and out, immediately questions the explanation, asking how mud could possibly get inside a tire. She then asks if there are any restaurants nearby that serve Chinese food. Vinny simply laughs and asks why she keeps making it so obvious that they are tourists.
What are you, a world traveler?
Meanwhile, the boys are transferred to a state correctional facility. There, Stan becomes frightened, worrying he might run into someone like Bubba, the kind of inmate who bullies and extorts others just like in the movies.
And sometimes there's a big guy named Bubba no one wants to tangle with, and he'll protect you.
Stan,
But then you have to become his slave and do whatever he wants.
shut up.
Soon, Vinny arrives, pays the guard, and enters their cell, making Stan mistake him for Bubba. Since Bill is asleep, Vinny says he will start with Stan first. Stan immediately gets scared and apologizes, insisting that he cannot do such a thing. Having no idea what Stan is talking about, Vinny casually replies that he understands and promises to make it quick and painless. As Stan keeps refusing again and again, Vinny even tells him he should thank him because he is not charging anything. But when Stan still refuses to go along, Vinny finally gives up and wakes Bill instead. Only then does Stan realize the misunderstanding and asks Vinny about his legal experience. Vinny admits that he has only handled personal injury cases, none of which ever made it to trial. In fact, he is not an experienced lawyer at all. He only managed to pass the bar exam on his 6th attempt. Hearing that, both boys' faces immediately go pale. Afterward, Vinny heads to the courthouse to meet the judge. Judge Chamberlain Holler, a Yale-educated legal scholar, immediately notices Vinny's outfit and tells him if he wants to appear in his courtroom, he must learn the proper procedures. He also warns that Vinny will receive no special treatment just because he comes from New York before handing him a book on Alabama's rules of criminal procedure. And so Vinny begins studying the book and tries to learn Alabama's courtroom procedures. Although Lisa offers to help, Vinny has no idea what to ask her to do. That night, however, neither of them gets much sleep because the local lumber mill blasts a deafening whistle at 5 o'clock every morning. While the locals treat it as an ordinary wake-up call, the Yankees are completely unprepared for it. Running on almost no sleep, the couple heads to a nearby diner for breakfast. Looking at the menu, they are surprised to find only 3 sections: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Curious to see what the local breakfast is like, they place their order and wait. 20 minutes later, all that arrives is a plate of grits. The couple stares at the food in confusion, while the cook stares back at them as if they are the strange ones. After arguing over who should try it first, Vinny finally takes the first bite. With breakfast over, they head to the courthouse and meet the prosecutor, Jim Trotter. Having no courtroom experience, Vinny simply copies everything Jim does and pretends to be an experienced lawyer. Soon, the boys are brought into the courtroom. The judge takes his seat, and the arraignment begins. Instead of simply entering a plea, Vinny immediately starts explaining the misunderstanding about the tuna can.
My clients are caught completely by surprise. They thought they were getting arrested for shoplifting a can of tuna.
The judge calls him forward and explains that in Alabama, courtroom procedures must be followed step by step. If Vinny keeps bringing up irrelevant matters, he will be held in contempt of court. Having no idea what those steps even are, Vinny continues trying to explain himself in complete confusion. Eventually, however, he manages to plead not guilty. The judge then sets bail at $200,000 for both Bill and Stan. As for Vinny, he is fined $200 for contempt of court as well as his inappropriate courtroom attire. The prison bus carries the 2 boys and their lawyer, Vinny, away together. After a while, Lisa comes to post Vinny's bail, even takes a souvenir photo of him. However, she cannot help asking what he actually learned in law school. Vinny honestly admits that he only memorized legal definitions. After graduating, instead of gaining courtroom experience, he spent his time working at Lisa's father's auto shop, so he practically knows nothing about trying a case. Although Vinny is happy just to finally get some courtroom experience, Lisa reminds him that they do not have much money left. To make matters worse, a local has already swindled her out of $200. Annoyed, Vinny storms back into the bar and confronts JT, demanding the money back. JT just smiles and asks what if he kicks him instead. Thinking like a lawyer, Vinny treats it as a counteroffer and replies that he would rather take the $200 than get kicked. When JT refuses, Vinny makes another offer, asking what if he kicks JT instead and takes the money himself. JT immediately agrees to fight. Vinny takes off his jacket and asks him to show the money first. But JT has no money at all, so the negotiation ends right there, and Vinny simply walks away. Back at the prison, Stan argues that they should hire another lawyer. Bill refuses, insisting that Vinny is family and that he is great at arguing. Stan points out that his own parents argue all the time too, but that does not make them good lawyers.
Stan, I've seen your parents argue. Trust me, they're amateurs.
That night at the motel, Vinny and Lisa start another argument, this time over a faucet that keeps dripping 1 drop at a time. Vinny asks why she did not shut it off properly. Lisa insists that she did and that the faucet must be broken. Vinny questions why it has to be broken. Confidently, Lisa picks up a magazine and explains that she tightened it to exactly 16 foot-pounds, just as the manual recommends, adding that it is the same standard used by every related agency, even NASA. She goes on and jokes that the moment she touched the faucet, the Federal Bureau of Weights and Measures probably came over to verify it. Then she tears off the page and proudly points to the words certified signature. And just like that, Lisa wins another completely ridiculous argument. The next morning, however, neither of them can win against the lumber mill's deafening 5 o'clock whistle. Later, the preliminary hearing begins. Prosecutor Jim Trotter calls Mrs. Riley, Mr. Crane, and Mr. Tipton to testify. All 3 claim they saw the 2 boys jump into a green car with a white convertible top and drive away after shooting the store clerk.
Jump into a green car with a white convertible top and drive off like the Dickens.
Sheriff Farley then presents the boys' confession statements. After the prosecution finishes, the judge asks Vinny whether he has anything to add. Having no idea what to say, Vinny remains silent. Seeing that enough evidence has been presented, the judge orders the case to proceed to trial. Before ending the hearing, however, he once again fines Vinny another $200 for failing to dress appropriately in court. On the ride back to prison, the boys angrily ask why Vinny stayed quiet and allowed the case to go to trial. Vinny explains that they are two Northerners accused of killing a local man in a small Alabama town, so there is no realistic way the judge would dismiss the case at this stage. Hearing that, the boys finally fall silent, while Vinny ends up getting another lecture from Lisa.
I mean, you're my fiance. You're supposed to stand by your man, encourage me a little bit.
Is that what you want?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. The way you handled that judge. Oh, you're a smooth talker. You are. You are.
The couple then moves to another hotel in town, hoping to finally get a good night's sleep. But even at 3 in the morning, Vinny is still awake, and Lisa stays up to keep him company. Vinny honestly admits that he is worried the boys' lives might be ruined because of his mistakes. Even so, he believes they will win because they are innocent. Lisa encourages him, saying that if he gets through this case without making a mistake, he will become a truly formidable lawyer. Putting their worries aside, they finally go to bed. But before sunrise, the loud noises from a nearby pig farm wake Vinny once again. Back at the prison, Stan finally loses faith in Vinny and hires a court-appointed attorney named John Gibbons, who appears calm, professional, and highly experienced. While Gibbons immediately begins working on the case, Vinny is asleep in the next conference room until Bill walks in. No longer wanting to hide the truth, Bill apologizes and admits that Stan has hired another lawyer. He also wonders if he should do the same. Vinny calmly tells Bill that he can handle the case. He explains that the prosecutor is simply creating an illusion, like a magician performing a trick. But every magic trick has an answer, and if they can find it, they can expose the truth. All Bill needs to do is trust him and give him the chance. Impressed by his cousin's confidence and reasoning, Bill decides to place his life in Vinny's hands. That night, Stan once again urges Bill to change lawyers while there is still time. But Bill explains that back home, Vinny always exposed every magician who claimed to be famous because he had an incredible eye for details and an excellent memory. Just then, the lights flicker, and they realize a prisoner is being executed in the electric chair, leaving both of them silently thinking about their own future. Meanwhile, back in town, Vinny runs into JT, who is waiting outside the hotel. Seeing JT proudly showing off a thick wad of cash, Vinny casually asks how anyone could know it is not just a stack of $1 bills with a 20 wrapped around the outside. Vinny guesses correctly, and JT walks away in embarrassment once again. Vinny goes back to bed, hoping to finally get some sleep. But at 5 in the morning, a passing train shakes the entire building and wakes both of them again. Annoyed, Vinny asks the hotel clerk whether the train passes every morning at that time. Fortunately, the clerk replies that it almost never does, convincing Vinny to stay one more night. Later, Vinny meets with prosecutor Jim Trotter to learn more about the case. Jim openly admits that early in his career, he once helped a guilty man walk free. Ever since then, he has dedicated himself to putting criminals behind bars and seeking justice. Curious in return, Jim asks why Vinny became a lawyer. Vinny explains that it all started after he was once arrested over a traffic violation. He argued so effectively in court that the police officer eventually admitted he had been wrong. The judge in that case, Judge Malloy, was impressed and encouraged Vinny to become a lawyer. Judge Malloy treated him like a son and guided him through law school and the bar exam, because his own son chose to become a musician instead of following his footsteps. Jim enjoys hearing the story and even invites Vinny to go hunting with him. Vinny brings the good news back to Lisa, but she does not seem impressed. Even worse, when Vinny tells her about Jim inviting him deer hunting and asks what kind of pants he should wear, Lisa loses her patience. She tells him to imagine himself as a young deer peacefully drinking from a stream. Then, just as a bullet blows its brains out, she asks what deer would ever care about the hunter's pants. Even so, Vinny goes hunting with Jim. While making conversation, he casually asks whether he can have copies of the prosecution's files. Jim immediately agrees. Vinny happily returns to the hotel, carrying a whole box of files, and proudly shows off his success. But Lisa only looks at him in amusement and points out that Jim was required to hand over those files anyway under the disclosure rules. Instead of uncovering the prosecution's weaknesses, Vinny has only revealed his own inexperience.
Didn't teach you that in law school either?
Still refusing to give up, Vinny begins visiting each witness one by one. When dawn arrives, the train rumbles past once again, ruining Vinny's sleep. He complains to the hotel clerk, only for the clerk to explain that the train always comes at 4:30 in the morning, not 5 o'clock. Vinny is left completely speechless. When it is time to select the jury, Jim carefully chooses jurors who strongly support the death penalty. Afterward, Judge Holler calls Vinny into his office and shows him a fax from New York stating that no lawyer named Vincent Gambini can be found on record. Ready to have Vinny jailed, the judge demands an explanation. Thinking quickly, Vinny claims that he once practiced in show business and officially changed his name to Jerry Gallo because he wanted a more distinctive professional name. Outside the courthouse, Lisa immediately points out that the real lawyer, Jerry Gallo, died only recently. All Vinny can do now is hope Judge Holler never finds out. Desperate for a full night's sleep, the couple moves to Jim's hunting cabin deep in the woods. While Vinny carefully reviews the witnesses' statements, Lisa keeps pacing around him. When Vinny asks what is bothering her, she finally admits that she knows he is making mistakes, but she feels powerless to help. Those mistakes put everything at risk, not only Bill and Stan's lives, but also Vinny's promise to marry her if he wins his first case. Already overwhelmed, Vinny finally loses his temper. He points out that the judge wants to throw him in jail. JT is still waiting for a fight, the boys could end up on death row, and he has barely slept for days. He asks why she wants to pile even more pressure on him. Realizing how much stress he is under, Lisa lets the argument go, and Vinny finally gets a peaceful night's sleep. Unfortunately, it does not last long. An owl begins hooting outside the cabin. Frustrated, Vinny fires wildly into the darkness and tries to scare it away. But the owl keeps hooting anyway. Left with no other choice, the two drive deeper into the woods and try sleeping in the car instead. Unfortunately, heavy rain starts pouring down, and Vinny once again spends another sleepless night. In the morning, they discover their car is stuck deep in the mud, and Vinny's court suit is completely covered with dirt. Since the car has a solid rear axle, only one will keep spinning, making it take quite a while to get out. As soon as they arrive back at the hotel, Vinny rushes to take a shower while Lisa searches for something else for him to wear.
Look here. I got you $200 now.
Unfortunately, Lisa cannot find a proper suit. The only thing available is a ridiculous outfit, almost as if it's mocking the judge.
You on drugs?
Drugs? No, I don't take drugs.
I don't like your attitude.
Oh, there's a surprise.
What'd you just say?
What'd I say? What?
Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury.
As the trial begins, Jim questions his witnesses before the jury, while Vinny keeps dozing off from exhaustion. When it is the defense's turn, Bill wakes him up. Vinny simply says that everything Jim has presented is full of mistakes, then sits back down and nearly falls asleep again. Stan's lawyer, John Gibbons, takes over first. But despite looking calm and experienced, he suddenly becomes nervous, starts stuttering, and completely loses control while questioning Mr. Tipton.
How far away were you?
About 50 feet.
Identification?
Yes.
Could you tell the court what color eyes the defendants have?
Brown, hazel green.
That's it. What about everything we talked about?
Well, I get a little nervous.
A little
out there or
nervous.
something. I'm getting better.
Vinny stands up and takes over the cross-examination himself. Tipton testifies that he saw the boys enter the store while he was preparing breakfast and saw them running away while he was eating it. Vinny then asks how the two youths could have entered the store, picked up 22 items, paid for them, shot the clerk, and driven away in only 5 minutes.
Is it possible the two youths?
Two what?
Hearing Vinny say two youths, Judge Holler interrupts and asks what he means. Vinny politely explains he means youths, then continues questioning Tipton. Vinny asks how Tipton knows it was only 5 minutes. Before Tipton can answer, Vinny changes the subject and asks what he was cooking that morning. Proudly, Tipton answers that he was making grits, a traditional Southern breakfast. Vinny then points out that cooking grits takes at least 20 minutes, making it impossible for everything he described to have happened in only 5. Faced with that contradiction, Tipton finally admits he is no longer sure about the timeline. For the first time, Vinny successfully introduces reasonable doubt. If the boys had already driven away, then someone else could have arrived afterward, committed the murder, and escaped in a similar-looking car.
You're fired. I want him.
Although Vinny scores his first real victory in court, Judge Holler still holds him in contempt over his ridiculous suit. This time, Vinny tells Lisa not to bother posting bail. Ironically, the noisy jail turns out to be the first place where he can finally sleep. Unlike the countryside, which keeps waking him with strange noises every morning, the jail is filled with the familiar sounds of New York, allowing him to get a full night's rest. The next day, Vinny returns to court completely refreshed. He cross-examines the remaining eyewitnesses one by one and exposes more flaws in their testimony. Mrs. Riley claims she clearly saw the boys' faces, but Vinny proves she cannot even recognize someone standing 50 feet away, even though the store is much farther from her house.
This is 50 feet. That's half the distance. How many fingers am I holding up?
4.
He then questions Mr. Crane, who insists he witnessed the shooting. Vinny points out that Crane's view was blocked by a dirty window, dusty curtains, and a large tree outside filled with thousands of leaves, making it nearly impossible for him to have seen what he claimed. Just like that, the trial slowly begins turning in Vinny's favor. But later that night, Jim calls him with unexpected news. He says the prosecution has just received new evidence. Vinny immediately points out that the disclosure rules require him to receive it as well. Jim replies that he only learned about it that very evening himself, then hangs up, leaving Vinny wondering what surprise awaits him next. Although Vinny expects the prosecution to present evidence about the murder weapon, Jim instead calls a new witness named George Wilbur, an automotive expert from the FBI. Vinny immediately objects, arguing that under the disclosure rules he should have been informed about the witness first. But Judge Holler overrules the objection and allows the testimony to continue. George testifies that the tire marks found at the crime scene perfectly match the tires on Bill and Stan's 1964 Buick Skylark. According to his examination, the tires have the same chemical composition, the same size, and even the same track width. At that moment, a fax from New York arrives. Judge Holler calls for a lunch recess and orders Vinny to meet him in his office. The judge confronts Vinny with the truth that Jerry Gallo is dead and demands an explanation. Thinking quickly, Vinny claims the judge has the wrong person because his legal name is actually spelled Jerry Callo with a C instead of a G. Still suspicious, Judge Holler immediately contacts New York to verify the story. Fortunately for Vinny, the answer will not arrive until after 3 o'clock. He now has only a few hours to save the boys before he may end up in jail himself. Although he only lied to hide his lack of courtroom experience, the judge treats it as a serious offense. Later, during lunch, Lisa happily shows Vinny the photographs she has been taking since they arrive in Alabama, completely unaware of the trouble he is facing. Already overwhelmed, Vinny loses his patience and starts making fun of the photos one after another.
You did it! The case cracker! Me in the shower! Dog shit, that's great! Dog shit, what a clue! Why didn't I think of that?
Hurt by his comments, Lisa storms out of the diner, leaving him alone. After the break, the trial resumes. Vinny has no immediate way to challenge George's testimony, but he begins asking a few careful questions. He asks whether another car could have used the same tires as Bill and Stan's Buick. George admits that it is possible because those tires are among the most common in the United States. However, he insists that it would be nearly impossible for another faded green 1964 Buick Skylark convertible to have the exact same combination. With no further questions, Vinny returns to his seat, looking completely defeated. Then, at that very moment, he notices one of the photographs Lisa had shown him earlier. It clearly shows 2 distinct tire tracks on the road. Suddenly realizing something important, Vinny asks Judge Holler for a few more minutes, explaining that he is waiting for new evidence. The judge reluctantly gives him only 3 minutes. Working quickly, Vinny writes down the name of the car model and asks Sheriff Farley to help locate one. He then rushes outside and begs Lisa to return and testify as an expert witness. Still upset, Lisa refuses at first, but Vinny desperately insists until she finally agrees and follows him back into the courtroom. When Vinny introduces Lisa as an automotive expert, Jim immediately objects and asks permission to question her qualifications. Lisa calmly explains that she is not a professional mechanic. However, she grew up in a family of mechanics. Her grandfather, her father, and all of her brothers worked on cars, and she has spent her entire life learning from them. Jim argues that simply growing up around mechanics does not make someone an expert. Confident that he has trapped her, he asks a technical question. He asks for the correct ignition timing on a 1955 Chevrolet Bel Air equipped with a 327 cubic inch engine and a 4-barrel carburetor. Without hesitating, Lisa replies that the question has no correct answer. Chevrolet did not produce a 327 engine in 1955. That engine was introduced in 1962, and it was not available in the Bel Air with a 4-barrel carburetor until 1964. The courtroom falls completely silent. From that moment on, no one doubts Lisa's expertise anymore. Vinny stands up and walks over to Lisa, showing her the photograph of the tire tracks left outside the store. Lisa studies it carefully, and something suddenly clicks in her mind. She explains that the tracks were not made by a Buick Skylark at all. They were left by a Pontiac Tempest, also built by General Motors. That is why the two cars look almost identical, sharing the same body style and paint. But there is one crucial difference. The Pontiac Tempest is equipped with a positraction rear axle, allowing both rear wheels to spin evenly even on a slippery surface. The Buick Skylark, however, uses a solid rear axle, meaning only one rear wheel spins while the other remains still, just like Vinny's car when it got stuck in the mud. Vinny then turns back to George Wilbur and asks whether he agrees with Lisa's explanation. George admits that she is absolutely correct. At that very moment, Sheriff Farley rushes into the courtroom with new evidence. Vinny immediately calls the sheriff to the witness stand and asks him to explain what he has found. The sheriff reveals that a green Pontiac Tempest has recently been reported stolen. More importantly, the police in Jasper County have arrested the real criminals and recovered the murder weapon from their possession. At that moment, the truth finally becomes clear. Judge Holler smiles and asks Jim whether the prosecution has anything else to present. With no evidence left, Jim Trotter dismisses all charges against Bill and Stan, bringing the trial to an end. The two innocent college boys are finally set free, escaping the death penalty thanks to the unlikely lawyer everyone had doubted from the very beginning. As Vinny eagerly prepares to leave town, Judge Holler catches up with him, holding the long-awaited facts from New York. To Vinny's surprise, the judge simply smiles, shakes his hand, and apologizes for doubting him. It turns out Lisa had secretly asked Judge Malloy to send a fake fax praising Vinny as an outstanding lawyer, saving him from even more trouble. With the case finally over and the boys free, there is only one thing left to do: a wedding.